Merry Christmas everybody, it's your boy Rashad back again with another video, and today I'm finally going to review Into the Spider-Verse. I was actually going to do a spoiler-free video, but as it's been out for a while now and the Christmas period is here, I'm going to go straight into major spoilers. So this is your spoiler warning, you have been warned. So I saw the trailers for Into the Spider-Verse and they didn't really show me much. I couldn't really see what the story was going to be about. I knew obviously it had something to do with the Spider-Verse and the alternate realities and the different Spider-Men roaming around right now. And that obviously this story centered around Miles Morales. Going in to see this movie, I was completely blind. I didn't really know what was going on. And I was so satisfied. I'm not gonna lie, I was so happy with this movie. At the beginning, I thought that the graphic art style, the cinematography was gonna be a bit crazy for my eyes. I didn't really want to have to watch it in 3D or anything like that. But I loved it. At the end of the day, I watched it and it didn't grate on me in the first maybe 5 minutes. I was a little bit confused. My eyes had to adjust. But apart from that, the whole style of how this movie was created was perfect. It was literally like a comic book in motion and I loved every minute of it. The characters also, in my opinion, were done perfectly. I can't use any other word but perfect, I'm sorry. Both Spider-Man, Peter Parker, and the alternate reality Peter, they characterize Spider-Man so well. Like his core values, the wit he has, the type of humor he has, the way that he just doesn't give up and the way that he believes the hero should act. It was just amazing to see. And I'm so happy that I finally got to see like a perfect Spider-Man on screen. Tom Holland, I love him and he's the MCU Spider-Man. But for a younger audience, I think that the versions of Spider-Man that they put in this movie will show them all they need to know. Especially Peter B. Parker, like I loved it. I think that an aged Spider-Man with a lot of real world problems would end up like him. And he was very relatable, he was funny. The fact that he didn't really want kids with Mary Jane and that's why they broke up was a really good thing to add to his story. And then obviously towards the end of the movie, he does start growing to like the idea of having children and that maybe it's not such a bad thing. So he had a whole arc in the movie and I loved it. I loved all the scenes that he was in and I really liked the relationship that he had with Miles. Speaking of Miles, I think that this is the best iteration that I've seen of him, like better than the comics. The way that he is so relatable, it was crazy. Like they touched on his heritage. You can see him speaking Spanish to his mum and some of his friends, which they didn't really do in the comics. He's actually mixed race. He is black and Hispanic, and it showed in this movie, and I liked how they showed that. I like the relationship Miles had with his parents, that it wasn't just the perfect relationship, but it was damn near close to it. You could tell that his parents were doing the best that they could, and you could tell that Miles also knew he could turn to his parents if he really needed to, depending on the situation. I loved Uncle Aaron. I think that he was a great character and his death was probably one of the most emotional scenes in the movie. Prowler was intimidating when he was on screen and it was just, I love the music that went with Prowler, his theme music. It was just perfect, to be honest. On the flip side of that, you could argue that not many of the characters got enough time in the limelight. Supporting characters such as Spider-Ham, Spider-Man Noir, and the anime Spider-Girl, Penny Parker. But yeah, those characters didn't get much screen time, but it didn't really detract from the movie. You could tell that they were there for a reason, to show that obviously anyone could be Spider-Man, and that those characters had gone through the same sort of things as Miles did. So he had a nice little family unit there to support him and stuff. So that's what I think they were for. The lines that they had, they were funny. I did in particular like Spider-Man Noir, like his dark humor was crazy to me. Like I have a very dark sense of humor. So when he's talking about he lights a candle just and watches it burn to the end just so he could feel something, that was hilarious to me. And it really showed like that he had some depth that no one's really explored too much. The villains in this also didn't have a lot of screen time. Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, was the main villain and he had a lot more depth than I thought. If you've seen the Daredevil Netflix series, you'll understand how close he is to his wife Vanessa, and that the reason that they made in this movie about him trying to get his wife and child back after they died running away from him because he had scared them by beating up Spider-Man. They were terrified of his brutality. They died. They got hit by a car while they were fleeing. And Wilson Fisk blames Spider-Man for this because they were fighting at the time, and he wants to get his family back, and that's why he creates the collider to pluck another family from a different universe to replace his. I just enjoyed it. I enjoyed the villain. As I said, he didn't get too much screen time or too much stuff to do, but they did flesh him out enough for this movie, I think. The fact that Miles didn't really become Spider-Man till the end of the movie, and his trials and tribulations that got him to that point, that whole arc was amazing to me. Seeing Miles grow up and come from a child that wasn't really too naive but was just weighed down by the expectations of those that are around him, finally find some sort of freedom and some sort of way to express himself away from all of that. It was great to see. And the fact that he couldn't use his powers too well, and he still had that grand sense of justice and loyalty. And the fact that he then had to dig deep inside himself to activate his powers and become the Spider-Man, take that leap of faith. It was perfection. That whole set piece, that whole scene where he has finally got his black suit, which I loved the design of and I loved how he created it. But that scene where he is ready to take that leap of faith and he jumps off the building, that was an emotional scene for me. I didn't tear up or anything at it, but it did catch me in my chest a little bit, just to show that, I don't know, seeing him finally take that leap and realize that anyone could be Spider-Man, you just have to never give up, and that this is what heroes do, and sometimes you have to do the right thing just because it's the right thing to do. All of those emotions that Miles was feeling up to that point of being inadequate, being inferior, and having all these expectations were on him, I could just feel the weight lift off him as he jumped off, and the music, the cinematography, the way he was falling, the animation style as well, they all came together and made it into a perfect moment. And I don't think that's something that I'm going to forget anytime soon. The music in general for this was on point. I've listened to the soundtrack. There are a lot of songs on there, and I have found my favorites, and there's about 5 or 6 that I have on there that are bangers. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm so happy that they didn't make Miles and Gwen get into a relationship straight away. If that does happen, I don't mind it happening in the future, but I like the way that they introduced Gwen Stacy and the relationship she had with Miles. I thought it was amazing. But yeah, I think I've touched on the things that I liked about this movie. I had a few gripes, but not anything that changed the rating for me at all. It didn't really make a difference. So I would give this movie a 10 out of 10. It was perfection. I would love to see a sequel, and you know what? I have to give Sony a round of applause. I didn't realize that this is something that I needed from the Spider-Man universe. And even though they're probably still going to use this to leverage Marvel for their characters and stuff like that, I have to give props where props is due. So they did a good job. They are on a roll at the moment, and I hate them all the more for it. I did tear up at the Stan Lee cameo and the Stan Lee quote at the end of the movie. It was just very, very powerful to me. And with this cameo especially, because he's dead now and he wasn't dead when it was made, it has extra significance and it feels like it takes on a new meaning. But I thought that cameo was probably the best to date, just because of how he says what he says and then the joke at the end. So it's in the scene where Miles picks up a Spider-Man suit from the shop that sells Spider-Man suits. And he asks Stan Lee, who's at the counter, if it will fit him, and then he says it always fits eventually. And it just hit me when he said it, because he's just saying that even though you don't know who you are now, or you're struggling to find yourself now, you'll always get to that point eventually. That's how I interpreted it anyway. And in particular to Miles, it was almost like him saying that the suit won't fit you now because you're not used to it, you're not ready for it, but it will do, and it always does eventually, and you just have to keep going the same way you are. And that's also what his uncle said to him as he was dying, just to keep moving forward and that he's the best of him. So that's also something that I did like about Miles. The Stan Lee quote at the end made me tear up, just because that makes so much more sense now. And that the fact that he always thought anyone could be a superhero, they just have to want to do the right thing and no matter what, never give up. it is so relatable, and you could, in any walk of life that you have, if you took on that message, it would mean something to you. So, and the fact that he's gone now and that he has influenced a lot of my life and a lot of the person that I am, it was very, very powerful, and it was a very, very powerful message. So that's why I teared up at that. Anyways, let me not ramble on anymore. Those are my thoughts on Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Let me know if I've missed anything that you want to talk about. Let me know what you thought of the movie down in the comment section below. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Turn those post notifications on. Smash that like button. And as usual, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Taylor about the fucking flex.